One thing I wanted to discuss is a kind of a simmering in the background issue around the ISKCON circles, and that is the Wendell Turley lawsuit, where the GBC and ISKCON was sued for child molestation. And I was one of the people that helped put that case together, the reason being the children at the time, or an increasing number of the children at the time, were committing suicide. So I thought this is bad for the children themselves, of course, but also eventually there's going to be some kind of a newspaper story that the ISKCON children are committing suicide, and it will look like ISKCON, or the Hare Krishna religion, has a suicide of children cult going on here. Now, this also happened at the Catholic Church. Some of the victims of child molestation in the Catholic Church were committing suicide, and this got into the news. So this is a commonly understood problem, that children commit suicide after they've been molested and abused and victimized, and this can become an increasing problem, and it may become an epidemic. And it was becoming an epidemic in around 1995, 96, in ISKCON, in and around ISKCON. More children were committing suicide, and more of them were feeling suicidal, which means there was a potential for many more suicides. Now, in the Jvalamukhi video which she made, she pretty much confirms that that was a problem. There was a problem of herself and her colleagues and friends feeling suicidal. So there was an epidemic of feeling suicidal, at least. So, and it wasn't being addressed. This was the problem. The leaders of ISKCON were ignoring the problem. The parents of ISKCON were ignoring the problem, so the problem was getting worse. In other words, the victimization of the children was not being validated by the adults overseeing them. So they simply were just suffering in silence, really. No one really cared about the issue. So, to make a long story short, I helped them put together a lawsuit, and this was unfortunately in the newspapers, and it gave a lot of discredit to ISKCON. But now all of a sudden a whole bunch of people came out of the woodwork saying, oh my God, ISKCON is being discredited, this is terrible, Prabhupada's reputation is being discredited, this is awful, what's going on here? Where were these people in, say, for example, 1979, when Jai Tirtha was singing all kinds of crazy tunes on his Vyasa-san, and he was creating a huge wave of problems all over ISKCON. Everybody knew about that. And nothing was really done about it. He was reinstated, he was put back in his seat, I was kicked out of ISKCON. Where was the hue and cry then that ISKCON's credibility is going down? Where was people complaining that Jai Tirtha is discrediting Prabhupada by saying he's the successor to Prabhupada? A drug addict who's screaming and yelling at his Vyasa-san is saying he's the successor to Krishna? Why weren't people complaining about that? Why wasn't he removed? Why wouldn't people help me get rid of Jai Tirtha at the time? And then, apart from Jai Tirtha, there were some legal problems. Rameshwara's people were arrested. There was a big drug bust in Laguna Beach Temple. It was in all the newspapers all over the country. The whole movement was discredited. Prabhupada's reputation was going down the drain. Krishna's reputation. Where was the big hue and cry? Why didn't people say, hey, we got to get rid of Rameshwara, he's not managing his zone properly? What's going on here? And why are the other GBC propping up Rameshwara? Rameshwara is not controlling the people in his zone. The temple president was arrested. So all this is going on under Rameshwara's watch. Then, Kirtananda's drug mules were arrested. This was in all the newspapers, all over the country. Okay, once again, Prabhupada's reputation, Krishna's reputation, it's in the newspapers. It's looking like ISKCON is a criminal organization. Where were all the complaints at that time? How many people were complaining? I didn't hear people complaining. I didn't see public complaints coming forward from the devotees. And if I said something, they would say, well, Ranjan, you're being offensive to Kirtananda, he's a pure devotee. You're being offensive to Rameshwara, he's a pure devotee. Oh, you shouldn't speak like that. And then in 1980, we had the Syracuse lawsuit, where ISKCON was sued by the federal court. And the federal court determined that ISKCON was defrauding the public. Massively defrauding the public. they were collecting money for the blind, and they weren't giving the money to the blind. They were selling candles and calling that Sankirtan. It scandalized the entire movement, all over the newspapers, all over the country. Did we hear people come out and say, "Oh, look, it's in the newspapers. Look, ISKCON is being discredited in the newspapers"? Nope. We didn't see people coming out complaining, nothing, Kirtananda went on, he was still being worshipped as a pure devotee, no complaints were being made, nobody cared, nobody, and if I said something, then, I'm offending a pure devotee, Kirtananda. So the leaders were, supporting Kirtananda, and all of the bad publicity that he was creating in the newspapers. Nobody cared about that. The Syracuse lawsuit actually implicated all the leaders. All the leaders were promoting this bogus Sankirtan. People were selling oil paintings and candles, and there was a women's parties, and the women were getting beaten up and sexually molested on these parties. All kinds of things were going on. Where was the protest? I didn't see it. I just did not see the protest. I didn't see people coming out. The same people who are now complaining about the Wendell Turley lawsuit being a bad news publicity story, where were they when all these other stories were coming out? And then we had Hans Seduta's farm arrested. His farm was busted by the police. It was raided by the FBI and the sheriffs and all this stuff. It was in all the newspapers all over the place. He had an illegal gun business going on and all kinds of things. And the newspaper started a thing called the Krishna File, where they just wrote one story after another about Hans Seduta's people doing illegal things. It was in all the newspapers all over the place. Where were the protesters? Did we see people come out and say, "Oh, this is horrible. Look at the Hare Krishna religion is being discredited in the newspapers"? Not a peep out of anybody that I know of, hardly at all. I didn't see at the protest. Where? "Oh, the Wendell Turley lawsuit is terrible. It's in the newspaper." Yeah, well, what about all these other newspaper stories that went on and on and on and on for years and years and years? Where was the protest of that? Why didn't people say, "Oh, look, these stories are creating a bad reputation for ISKCON"? Nope, we didn't hear that. We just didn't hear that. All of a sudden, when the children are dying from suicide, and then something's being done about that, well then, oh my God, we can't be doing that. We can't be getting a bad newspaper story. Oh, we should just let the children die? That's the plan? We don't care? So when it comes to all kinds of other nonsense going on, nobody cares. When it comes to children dying, then there's a big concern. Oh, this is bad publicity. Well, what about the people who are dying? Well, we don't care. All we care about is the money, the lawsuit, the publicity. You didn't care about all this other publicity in the past. So, is this what we would call a double standard? All this bad publicity is going on and on and on for years. And then, of course, Kirtananda, in addition to all the crimes that were going on there, people were dressing in brown monk robes. They were singing English songs. They put a deity of Jesus on the altar. They were just doing all kinds of things which were not authorized. And everybody knew that. The whole place was just going off the rails. Where was the protest? There was no protest. Instead, the reformers went there in 1986. People like Rochan and Rabindra Swarup and everything, and they were all singing Jaya Bhaktipad. They were all, going along with the show there. They all, supported Kirtananda. So, they didn't protest at all. And then, of course, then Sulochan was murdered, and then, New Vrindavan went down the tubes and all the rest of it. And it was in all the newspapers and everything else. And what's happening today? Well, they're burying Kirtananda's body in Vrindavan, and the GBC leaders are there helping to bury the body. So, did they ever care about the publicity that Kirtananda caused for ISKCON? No. The guy who made the worst publicity for ISKCON ever was really Kirtananda. And instead of getting on his case, they're glorifying that guy. Instead, they're getting on my case, and they're blaming me for causing bad publicity over the Wendell Turley lawsuit. But the Wendell Turley lawsuit, okay, we have to separate out the reason for the case. The reason for the Wendell Turley lawsuit was that the children were dying, okay? So, there's a special reason for that lawsuit. We have to separate out the reason for that. The reason for Kirtananda's bad publicity was just that he was a rogue, rascal fool, that's all. there was no good upside to, his bad publicity. Didn't save anybody, didn't help anybody. But I don't see protesting of that going on right now. Instead, we see the reverse. We see he is being glorified. And he's being buried in the holy dome. Are people out protesting? Do I see one person with a sign in front of Kirtananda Samadhi out there saying, this is wrong, this is bogus, we have to stop this, this is giving us bad publicity all over Vrindavan? Nope. I don't see any protest. But people are, they have plenty of time to protest me and, what I'm trying to do. They don't have time to protest the people who really have caused real bad publicity for ISKCON. And that's all there is to it. But I like Jvalamukhi's talk, which I'm going to analyze a little bit here in a minute, because she pretty much agrees that the lawsuit did bring everyone, bring everybody to agree and understand that there was a molesting problem going on, mass molesting problem. It took everybody out of their denial state. And it validated the victimization of the children, which helped them feel less suicidal, because now someone else was coming out and saying, yeah, you were victims. Instead of blaming the victims and saying, this is your bad karma. That's what people were saying. Well, they just got their karma. Instead of that, somebody, namely Wendell Turley, a Texas lawyer, he wears snakeskin boots and he's got a bottle of Jack Daniels on his desk. This guy has more concern for the children than all the assembled so-called devotees. This guy's actually worried about them committing suicide. This guy's actually thinking, wow, these children were victimized. Somebody should come forward and help these children. Who else is coming forward? Nobody. Wendell Turley had to do the job that the devotees, so-called devotees, did not do. They did not do the job that he did. He came forward. He says, I am going to help them. They were not getting help otherwise. The parents weren't helping. The leaders weren't helping. No one was helping. So this guy with snakeskin boots, bottle of Jack Daniels on his desk, he has to do the job that all these fools could not do, and would not do, and did not do. And as soon as he did something, then they all complained. Oh, this is bad publicity. Well, why didn't you do something a long time ago about these children? Why didn't you try to help them? Why didn't you make a lawsuit? Why didn't you put together the lawsuit you wanted? Instead, this guy comes and does it pro bono. He's just doing it for the money, maybe, okay. But he doesn't need the money. He's already sued the cigarette companies. He's already a millionaire. He doesn't need money. He did this because he felt that these children needed help. So he helped them. And the suicides subsided after he launched his case. So the real question is, why is some guy with snakeskin boots and a bottle of Jack Daniels on his desk doing more to help these children than nothing, which was being done without his help? And of course, the real question is, why is some Texas lawyer who wears snakeskin boots and he's got a bottle of Jack Daniels on his desk, why does he have more mercy and compassion and wherewithal to do something for the children of ISKCON? That he has to save them from feeling suicidal. No one in ISKCON seems to even care, So this is called hypocrisy. All this bad publicity was going on in the newspapers for years and years and years, and it was just getting worse. I mean, the Kirtananda story was like an international story. It was all over the world when his farm was raided and all the rest of it. We never saw any protest of that, ever. I never saw anybody out with a couple signs at a GBC meeting, the North American GBC meeting, saying, you know what, you guys are just rogues and rascals and fools for allowing this whole Kirtananda thing to go on. We just don't see any protest. The only protest really is against me. And that's because, in my opinion at least, the real protest is because everybody feels guilty. They let this situation go on with these children. They didn't do anything. They let the publicity against the movement go on and on for years. They didn't do anything about it. And then finally, the children's situation is just exploding all over the place. And some so-called karmi lawyer has to come in and do something. And it just shows that all these people didn't care, didn't do anything, didn't do nothing, And this guy showed them up. he actually showed, that he has more concern for these children than they did. So if you're a great devotee and you don't even have concern for children, and some karmi guy who's, eating hamburgers or whatever he's doing, has more concern for your children than you do, then where does that leave you? It makes you look foolish. So a lot of the reason for the anger and resentment against me and against this case has nothing to do with the publicity, because nobody cared about the publicity all along. It's hypocrisy. It's just hypocrisy, and that's really all it is. Anyway, I'm going to start out now with Jvalamukhi's little talk here and get into some of the things that she discusses here. First of all, in the introduction, her prayer intro, she mentions Bhaktitirtha Swami. Okay, Bhaktitirtha Swami, we have to keep in mind that Kulashekar Das, a good friend of mine, was complaining about Bhaktitirtha's management once at a temple. On his way out of the temple, he was beaten to a pulp, almost beaten to death. And this was the way Bhaktitirtha did things. If you did not agree with the way he did things, well, in other words, he was just like the rest of the GBC. People were getting beaten up all over the place. Well, Kulashekar sustained such severe injuries that he could barely walk for like 6 months after that. And he was in pain for the rest of his life. He had to take all kinds of pain medications and things like that. In other words, Bhaktitirtha just ruined this guy's life without even thinking about it. And there are stories of him mistreating women in Africa and so on and so forth, and there's even rumors that he helped orchestrate the murder of, a woman who was, he wanted to have an affair with this woman and so on and so forth. The bottom line is he was, Kirtana's right-hand man, Bhaktitirtha. So Jvalamukhi is saying Bhaktitirtha has some compassion, for the things that are going on in ISKCON. Well, yeah, there's some new age, kind of superficial gloss that some of these people have. We're going to do some counseling and this, that, and the other. But the bottom line is they all supported the criminal enterprise, and Bhaktitirtha's own people were doing criminal things like beating up devotees. So it was all just very superficial. Then Jvalamukhi says, on this most auspicious appearance day of Lord Nrsingadev, let us follow in his holy footsteps, offering our hearts and feet of the Lord for purification and rectification, for the cleansing, healing, and upliftment of Srila Prabhupada's body, the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. As we take courage from the association of sincere Vaishnavas, we pray. And she starts reading a prayer. The prayer was made by Mahanidhi Swami. Mahanidhi is another guy, who's caused problems for devotees. I know a woman who was in a temple. She collected hundreds of thousands of dollars. She hurt her leg. She got injured. And Mahanidhi just said one day, he snapped his fingers and says, we don't want cripples to be living in a temple. She's got to go. So she's given hundreds of thousands of dollars to Mahanidhi. She hurts herself, and instead of saying, we got to take care of this person, she's one of our family members, no, she's got to go. Because it's all about money, And she called him Mahanidhi Swami. Because as soon as she walked in the door, he wondered, where's the dollars? That's all he cared about. Where's the money? And as soon as she didn't come in the door with money, she had a hurt leg, boom, she's out. So where's the compassion? Where's the concern for other people? There is none. There just is none. And that is the problem. And that is what she is addressing in her prayer. And then she goes on to say, we have to pray to Lord Nrsingadev to protect us from the demons in ISKCON. Okay, these demons, who are they? They're the leaders. They're the people who are victimizing people, who have no concern for the subjects. They just don't care. They don't care about these children. They still don't care. It's just a big pain for them that they had to undergo this lawsuit. It's just a nuisance. Then Jvalamukhi says, I am a child of ISKCON, and now I have my own children. The generation, Srila Prabhupada said, would be pure devotees and change the world. What I want for them is what Srila Prabhupada wanted for us. But what happened to us is not what I want for them. Thus I am here before the Lord of the universe, Lord Narasingha Bhagavan, on his most auspicious appearance day to plead my case and to beg for protection of this third generation. So, okay, wait a minute. People say I destroyed ISKCON with this lawsuit. No, ISKCON is already destroyed. If you have to pray for the protection of your children in a society, it's already destroyed. It's already gone. It's long gone. So, think about it. You have to pray to God to protect your children from your own religion? And then you're saying, I'm the person that destroyed the religion? No. This is what destroyed the religion. What destroyed the religion is no concern for the people in the religion. You don't care about the children of the religion even. There's no concern. We have to pray to God. God save our children from our religion and from the demon leaders of our religion. Does that mean I destroyed ISKCON? No. It means the leaders destroyed ISKCON, and all the people who acquiesced with that, went along with that, didn't do anything to fix it, they destroyed the religion. I simply reported the story. That's all. Then Jvalamukhi says, although a lot has changed, the true reason for what happened is not yet understood by the general mass of devotees. Right, the root issue is that the leaders are demons. That is the root problem. And it hasn't been understood by the devotees. Jvalamukhi continues, we know that the devotee and demon are present in the same body in Kali Yuga. Srila Prabhupada warned us that there are demons amongst us, dressed as Vaishnavas. Okay, great. Now she's addressing the root issue. There's demons dressed as Vaishnavas who are leading this society. She goes on, there is a well-known analogy given of a wolf dressed in sheep's clothing, hiding amongst its prey, undetected. A simple sheep can never understand the mentality of a wolf, and thus loses one's family member after another, unable to see the cause. All right, well, this is what happened, with ISKCON's children. One child after another was, victimized, and then one child after another was starting to commit suicide. And the sheep couldn't understand what was going on, that the society and the children in the society were being eaten by wolves. Then she continues, O Lord Narasinghadev, please kindly expose these wolf demons within and without, and with your lion's prowess protect us and our children. Let the hearts of those wolves be transformed at the sight of Lord Narasinghadev. Please engage us in spreading the Yuga Dharma, Harinam Sankirtan, the way Srila Prabhupada directed. Only by your blessings will be free from the demon of hypocrisy. Well, yeah, it's hypocrisy. They're posing as leaders, and then, they just tolerated all this bad publicity for years and years and years in the newspapers. The guy who created all the bad publicity, Kirtananda, they bury him in the holy Dham. They don't care. So this is called hypocrisy. And that's what she's saying. Only by your blessings will we be free from the demon of hypocrisy. Then she goes on, Srila Prabhupada told us that nothing was powerful enough to check the progress of this movement. Only attacks from within could destroy it. Therefore, knowing this, the personality of Kali used strategy and proxies people used to act on behalf of another to do his dirty work. Okay, she's saying the leaders of ISKCON are disciples of Kali Yuga. Well, this is what Gaura Govinda Swami told me, too. He said, Kali Yuga has entered the highest places of management of the society. Okay, so if Kali Yuga is managing the society, where's the protest? How come this one woman has to come up and protest? Where are the men? Where are all the protesters? Where is everybody? No. There is none. All they do, once in a while, they'll send me an email saying, oh, you were bad for creating bad publicity. Well, what about the personality of Kali who created the bad publicity in the first place? I didn't cause all this child molesting. I said this is wrong. In 1980, I started saying, wait a minute, the children are not being treated properly. I'm not going to put my children into these schools. I made an announcement to the GBC. I told them, your schools are no good. So, no one joined me in the protest. Nobody helped me. So, Kali Yuga was allowed to enter the society by all the sheep. She said all these sheep are just standing around watching the wolves eat people up, and they don't know what's going on. That is exactly what's going on here. She continues, similarly, in our ISKCON, there has been a similarly organized controlling class. Okay, controlling class. She's talking about the leaders. That has not had the best interests of the family of devotees and the pure propagation of Srila Prabhupada's mood and teachings as their main concern. As with Jagai and Madhai, the abuses and offenses are unspeakable and have hardly yet been revealed. So in other words, she, and probably a lot of people, know about crimes that I don't even know about. The offenses and abuses are unspeakable, so no one speaks about. So that means the depth of problems that these leaders have created is not even known to somebody like me. And believe me, I know a lot of crimes that these guys have done. But she says, we don't even know that. We don't even know the depth of, sinister behavior going on with these leaders. So Prabhupada said, the sinister movement is within my movement. That is what he said. Of course, later he said, my only request amongst you leaders is please do not torture me and put me to death. So, and then he said, someone's poisoning me. It seems to me that Prabhupada was the first main victim of these leaders, and they poisoned him. That's what he said. That's what the evidence suggests. And then they began to victimize the rest of the members of the society. They took over the society and used it for their own personal gratification and exploitation, at least for the most part. Some of the leaders have a somewhat sympathetic side to them, but for the most part, a criminal enterprise, overtook ISKCON, and the mass of devotees who should have defended ISKCON and protected ISKCON just didn't. They just let all this go on. And then somebody like me, I tried to fix a few things, and then the leaders and many of the parents just criticized me, and they said, you shouldn't be, you shouldn't criticize Prabhu, So it was like a double situation. The wolves were eating the citizens, and the citizens, I was trying to raise the alarm, there's a wolf eating the citizens, and the citizen says, no, we're with the wolves. We like the wolves. We want to see the worship of the wolves going on. So, okay, well then that's what you have. You have a religion which is overtaken by bogus people, and basically that has overrun the situation. The good news is that, more people are protesting, and that's good. More people are waking up, and more people are, like Jvalamukhi and Govindadasi and others, are coming forward and protesting. So this protest should have started a long time ago. That's the point I'm making. And had this protest started a long time ago, and some of the big men of ISKCON, helped with this protest, all this trouble would never have happened in the first place. It happened because of the acquiescing of the mass of devotees. That is the point. So when they complain about me making bad publicity, okay, that's fine. What about all the other publicity? And how come you weren't there protesting all that? That is my question to these people. Because it appears to me that you're not admitting any fault here. You're just trying to make it look like all these problems just manifested out of nowhere. No, they manifested because of you acquiescing. You, the leaders, created it, and you, the rest of you, acquiesced with it. That is what created this problem, And then when it came to a crisis point where the kids were dying, then you just left that situation in my hands, and I had to deal with it the way I had to deal with it, because you didn't help at all. So the children inside the burning building, I'm running in to get the children out of the burning building, and then people are complaining that I'm using a hatchet to knock down the door. The fire department is using a hatchet on my door. They're ruining the building. Yeah, but the building's on fire, and we got to get the children out of there. Oh, but what about the hatchet ruining the building? What is that? So this is what I'm dealing with. People who have very, very lack of compassion and mercy. Period. Plain and simple.
So in devotional service, there are different symptoms. One of the symptoms is jnana. That means you can discriminate. This is right, this is wrong. Well, a lot of the parents went along with this whole program of worshiping deviants and the whole child molester infrastructure. That means they didn't have jnana, they didn't have discrimination. And therefore their children, a lot of their children are, not able to discriminate either. And that's why they think I'm wrong, because the parents think I'm wrong. And that's why, a certain sector of the children, they're all going along with Radhanath, because the parents are going along with Radhanath. Well, Radhanath was one of the mastermind people who helped Kirtananda. A lot of the parents went along with Narayan Maharaj. Narayan Maharaj was the biggest supporter of the GBC Guru program. That means they didn't have discrimination. So, a devotee gets jnana. That's mercy from Krishna, if he's sincere. But if it's like external, show bottle, and he's not really sincere, then he will not get this jnana. He will not be able to discriminate. This is right, this is wrong. And we have people, I won't mention their names here, but, even swamis, sannyasis, they're just saying, well, forgive and forget, don't worry about it. Well, Prabhupada never forgave and forgot. He just said, worshipping deviants is wrong. He said that at the beginning. He said that in the middle. He said that at the end. He never changed the policy. You don't worship deviants. It's not something you forgive and allow. You just don't allow it. Prabhupada did not allow it his whole life. He didn't say, well, now I'm getting old, let's forgive and forget and change our Siddhanta. He never did that. He never said the Gaudiya Math people were right. He said, I'm sorry for, attacking them, but he never said, I was wrong to attack them. So there's jnana, there's vairagya, detachment. So, people think I'm attached. No, Krishna's giving me a lot of vairagya. I'm feeling very detached right now from the material world. And then there's also raga. Raga means attachment to Krishna, and I'm also feeling that at the same time. So, in other words, I feel like Krishna is blessing me. And the reason I feel I'm being blessed is that everybody was tested. After Prabhupada left, he was poisoned. That's my opinion. That's what the evidence says. So we were tested. Are we going to work with the people who poisoned him and who were, just robbing, raping, and killing his movement? Or are we going to protest? It's a test. And I hate to say it, but most of the leaders and most of the other devotees and a lot of the adults, parents, and etc., they failed the test. They just failed the test. You have to defend your religion. You have to defend your guru. You have to defend Krishna. That's the way it is. And if you don't do that, you will not get the jnana. You will not get the vairagya. You will not get the raga. It just won't happen. And that's why we see devotees falling down into all kinds of horrible things all the time, because they do not have the jnana and the vairagya and the raga. They're just not getting it. And why is that? Because they failed the test. To conclude then, I would like to thank the small group of people who have had faith in the things that I've been doing personally, and the people who did back and help me on the Wendell Turley lawsuit. A number of Gurukulis have thanked me for helping them with the lawsuit and even helping save their lives. So no one can take that away from me, the thanks that I've gotten over the years. Tearful thanks from people saying they're glad that I gave them Prabhupada as their guru, and so on and so forth. That can't be changed, that can't be removed, that can't be taken from me, because I've seen this happen. But what I would like to say in the future, going forward, Jvalamukhi makes an important point, that many of these children are just messed up. They're dysfunctional. And this is one of the reasons they're dysfunctional, because they've just never got the backup that they needed. They've never been validated the way they needed to be validated. So from a psychological point of view, they're still being ignored in many different ways. With the rare exception of a few people like Jvalamukhi, no one is bringing forward their situation. So they're still being basically ignored, and this is causing them to be, suffering in silence on an ongoing basis. So it's very sad, and I don't see how that dysfunction can change unless the whole society just really wakes up and comes to grips with this situation and how badly the children were treated, really. And they go to all those children and apologize to those children and, rectify the relationship, that the children have had with ISKCON and with the parents and with this whole situation. Hari Bol, all glories to Srila Prabhupada.